Jeff Paterson is our Canucks reporter. They're finishing a rink-wide Vancouver last night. He's up and off to the airport to come home from Nashville here on Monday. Good morning, Jeff. How we doing?
Yeah, still trying to make sense of what I saw, what I witnessed, what I felt in that building. Quick story before we get into the game itself, but overtime, game ends, pack up the laptop, bolt from the press box at Bridgestone Arena, and you guys have been there. You know that it's sort of a makeshift press box in amongst the seats in the 300 level, run for the elevator, and as I get there, Barry Trotz and a few of his senior lieutenants are already in the elevator, and you could just, the look of despair and confusion, they're still trying to process. It was so quiet on that elevator ride down. I held my breath. I didn't even want to exhale for fear of setting anybody off. Like, they just looked like they were ready to be triggered in some way after watching this series probably slip away from them. Although, man, their Predators played hard in both games here. It has been such a bizarre series on so many levels, and I know we'll get into a lot of it, but I would tell you, having watched every minute, every second of this series, that the better team has won once on opening night. Yeah. And even then, it took the Canucks a while to get going, but they were the better team over the balance of play. But the last three games, I would say the better team has come out on the short end of the stick, somehow through it all, with three goaltenders. The Vancouver Canucks have a 3-1 lead.
Just on the game itself, or the finish itself, is that the craziest finish in Canucks playoff history you've seen?
I think so. I mean, 2 goals, and like, had they been pressing and pushing and it was a matter of time before they broke through, that might have been different. But guys, the shots were 10-2 at one point in the third period in favor of Nashville. The Canucks had shown no sign. There was no inkling in this building that a comeback was in the offing. Like, it absolutely materialized out of nowhere. And of course, Colton Sissons hitting the post in a play that would have sealed the victory and, quite frankly, could have turned this series on its ear. To get the bounces, the Forsberg goal. You know, the Canucks go to the third period down 2-1 when they have played terribly, and yet they're still in the hockey game and 12 seconds into the third on a questionable play that ultimately stands up. But I thought that was going to be the kick in the gut that did the Canucks in on Sunday. And through all of that, somehow, some way, they picked themselves up off the mat. And their best players, I mean, JT Miller and Brock Boeser, easily the best players in this series. Miller in on 5 of the 6 goals that were scored here in Nashville. Brock Boeser putting on a show, the first playoff hat trick for a Vancouver Canuck in almost 30 years, going back to Trevor Linden in 1996. And look, Brock Boeser had an incredible season, a breakout season, 40-goal season, but it wouldn't mean much if he didn't back it up in the playoffs. And to see what he did, scored a nice goal on Friday, paid a price, took a cross-check, but on the doorstep, and then the 3 goals, including the 2 with the goaltender pulled. Brock's had a really nice start to this series and this playoffs, and he wants to be known as a guy that scores big goals for this hockey club. And you look back at his season, 4 on opening night against Edmonton, a hat trick and a good win over a Tampa team in December, scored the game winner in overtime against the Boston Bruins on a Saturday at Rogers Arena, and his 40th goal of the season was in the third period of a comeback win against the Vegas Golden Knights late in the season that went a long way to helping them clinch the title. So he has scored some big goals through this year, and then up the ante here in Nashville with the game winner on Friday, and then 2 goals that they had to have to set the stage for the overtime winner.
We thought goaltending would be a big part of this series. We didn't think that this would be the way in which that tale is told. And right now, goaltending is the story in that it's not the story. Like, it should be the story. Using 3 goalies, like, this should be a case of the Canucks trying to outscore the problems in goal because they're gone so deep. It's really not even a tale of the tape, is it? I mean, they've just been good, and they've kept them in it, and they've allowed them to pull off crazy, stupid miracles like that.
Well, I said on Rinkwide last night that, the Canucks have goalie drama, but the Predators have a goalie problem here, and that UC Saros has an .857 save percentage. And really, look at the 4 goals that were scored on Sunday, and I'm not sure that I fault him on any, but you give up 4, and the third stringer at the other end of the ice gives up 3. The Predators need some saves along the way. And Saros, who was the busiest goaltender in the regular season, you wonder if the workload is coming back to haunt him. But for the Vancouver Canucks, like, it truly was such a bizarre but spectacular day for storylines, and seemingly innocuous coach availability 2 hours before puck drop, and Rick Tocchet gets to the podium and in his sweats, and he looks pretty relaxed, and there's only about 5 or 6 of us in the room. Most of the attending media didn't even bother with the coach's availability because they had practiced and everybody was accounted for on Saturday, including the 3 goaltenders, and nobody saw it coming. And I asked Rick if there were lineup changes, and he hinted that he had a decision to make. And fortunately, one of the Nashville reporters followed up point blank and said, "Rick, is Casey DeSmith starting?" And at that point, you could see him squirm. And Rick has been honest as the day is long all season. You ask him a question, you get an answer. And that was the first real indication that something was up here when you could see Rick kind of twisting in the wind a little bit. Didn't want to divulge, but it probably was killing him inside that he couldn't reveal the truth of what was going down here. And so, then shortly after some of the reports came out and Frank Saravelli broke the fact that, yes, it was going to be Arturs Silovs. So for the Canucks to have 3 wins in the series from 3 different goaltenders through 4 games, like that in and of itself, guys, after the game, like you talk about the theater of the bizarre, we all rush into the Canucks locker room. As I'm going down the tunnel to the hallway to their room, I passed Casey DeSmith and Thatcher Demko standing there in street clothes. And you're just thinking, like, what in the world is going on? These 2 guys are standing there and they've got their 3rd and 4th stringers in uniform, and they've just pulled off the most improbable victory, one of the most improbable victories in franchise history.
There was no way Nikita Tolopilo envisioned him being even in that situation, right? Like, just crazy.
I like what our buddy JC said. Repeat the formula. Tolopilo in game 4.
That's right. Just rotate all the way through.
Jeff, we know what Coach Tocchet said. What would you do in game 5 here, starting goaltender wise?
Yeah, not fully armed with all the information. My gut tells me that Casey DeSmith, if he is healthy enough to play, they'll go back to him. And he was good here on Friday night. Thought he might pitch a shutout. They got the 1 late goal on him and then, stood tall in the final frantic few moments there. And Canucks were able to preserve the 2-1 victory. So need to sort of get the health update here. But if they have to turn to Silovs, I asked Rick Tocchet after the game, a lot of coaches in that spot, guys, having to go to your 3rd stringer in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you'd probably think that your lot in life was probably cast at that point. But look, Tocchet saw Silovs firsthand last year after the coaching change, played a handful of games, played the Rangers, played the Bruins, so he faced some good opponents there. And then getting into the 4 games here late in the regular season where he went 3-0-1, Rick Tocchet said, like, Tocchet was remarkably calm. Everybody in the organization had this faith that, yes, it's stepping up a weight class, playoffs, playoff overtime, on the road, getting outplayed, and through it all. I mean, he gives up 2 goals. The Forsberg one, really nothing he can do there. I'm not pitting that one on Silovs at all. So, I mean, if they have to go back to Arturs Silovs, I think he has shown throughout the season and again on Sunday that he can deliver. The other thing, too, is, and look, now there's some heat on both of these teams. I mean, the Canucks don't want any part of coming back here to Nashville. Predators want to drag the series back to Music City, but there's also those 2 extra days between games again that if they were to go with Silovs, you would then allow Casey DeSmith that much more time to rest up and heal up. And again, this is all part of this, guys. Like, what kind of injury? And nobody was divulging any sort of information, but the nature of an injury that would keep a goaltender. Well, he practiced fully on Saturday, but kept him out of game action on Sunday. But then he could be ready for a game 5 elimination game on Tuesday night. So it's just, it is wild. It was wild in the moment here before and after the game. And we'll see where it goes from here. But the Canucks, I do think they have got a decision to make. My hunch, though, is that if DeSmith is ready, he will be in net.
As Silovs said, though, guys, he was so prepared because he'd played in Latvia. I mean, it's the same. Right. Latvia, NHL Plus, it's the same.
Jeff, we all know the phrase Canuck luck. We all know what that means. A North Vancouver kid hitting the post for a chance to seal it and coming back the other way to score 2 with the goalie out and then again in overtime. Are you taking this as an omen? Are we redefining, re-empowering Canuck luck in this series?
Well, in this series, perhaps, but when you look at just how beaten and bruised Quinn Hughes is, to think that a moment like that may spring them on some incredible run. It's so clear that he's nowhere close to 100% when he got tag teamed in behind the net there by Jason Zucker, and Colton Sissons late in the first period had to sit out a shift. And, I thought he was at the end of the bench to start the second period, and I thought, like, he's in rough shape. Like, is he only staying in this game to run the power play? Ultimately, he did play, but he was the low ice time defenseman through 40 minutes of play, which tells you something's not quite right with Captain Quinn. And yet, through all of that, summoned the energy to pull out the one bit of magic there late in the game, the play on Nyquist, and it leads to the tying goal. So he was down, but he wasn't out, and it's going to be really fascinating to monitor his workload and his usage. And if you're the Preds, you're just going to continue to attack and target Quinn Hughes. That comes with the territory of being a star player. Your Roman Josi has been on the receiving end of a couple of big hits. He took the puck in the face there in the ear, needed a bunch of stitches and some repair last night. So, it is taking its toll. It's been a heavy hitting series to this point. But the Canucks absolutely feasted on some luck. There's no question about that. But I love the execution too. Like, you get the break, and then you got to make the most of it. And the execution on the 3-2 goal, down low across the crease and onto the stick of Boeser. The tying goal was a little more frantic, and Boeser himself said he thought maybe he had missed his opportunity when the puck kind of rolled off his stick, hit the side of the net, and was able to corral it again and stuff it home. So, yeah, just all sorts of things going on. And then, guys, when you look at the winning goal, the Lindholm line really had done nothing since game one in this series. And in Nashville, they drew the Ryan O'Reilly matchup an awful lot. And O'Reilly absolutely dined on Lindholm in the faceoff circle earlier in the series. And yet there it was the Conn Smythe winner from a few years ago, a Selke winner. He's the guy that loses his man on that game-winning goal. It's Ryan O'Reilly who drifts over to the side, and Lindholm all alone in the slot. Great work by Garland behind the net. But it is funny that even the best in this game, momentary lapse, and it can be costly in the most high leverage moments. And that was certainly the case in overtime. And it's incredible. And you guys have lived through this too. When the visiting team wins in overtime, and this building was hopping throughout the afternoon, they're having a party. It was Sunday afternoon. They're up 3-1 in full control of the game. It seemed, in fact, the TV timeout midway through the third, the PA guy didn't say a thing. There was no music in Music City. It was the fans on their feet for 90 seconds. A standing ovation for the Predators at that point. They thought they were sending them back to Vancouver in a 2-2 tie. It was that moment of shock and silence when the only sound in the building is the winning team whooping it up as they pour off the bench. And there were two big celebrations, one with Lindholm in the offensive end, and obviously Silovs. Some of the guys gravitated to him as well. So just so many moments through the afternoon. Absolutely a spectacle, right up there with some of the great sporting events that I've been fortunate enough to witness in person throughout my career.
Lots of kudos to hand out for sure. But the Canucks were very quick themselves. So this is not just media whining. The Canucks players, very critical of themselves at the very same time that they were excited, saying, okay, but we know we can't win that way again. They all want to be better. 2 shot attempts for Elias Pettersson. Boeser, Hughes, Lindholm, Miller, all really putting their stamp on that game, at least in the finishing moments, if not the rest of the game. But not so much Elias Pettersson.
It's been hard to watch. It really has, and it's inexplicable at this point. 1 goal in 16 games now. And the play on that 1-1 goal after Jankowski tips the shot and the celebration, and Petey just gets bowled over and seemed to take it in that moment. And I like, get up, push back. Like, where's any of that? There's just nothing. I mean, the 2 shot attempts came late in the game because for the longest time he had an empty stat line to his name, and this is an 89-point player. It's wild. Like, there's just no other way to describe it, that he is so ineffective. And I thought he and his line had some moments in game 3, and they controlled play. And I thought maybe that would be a jumping on point for him. And yet I felt that game 4 was a step back until the late moments where, yes, he gets the second assist on the tying goal. But, the fact that we're grasping at a second assist 4 games into the series, he has 2 points now. I don't know. I don't know where it goes from here. I don't know how it gets a whole lot better for him. He looks frustrated. The team, Rick Tocchet after every game talks about needing more from some guys, and that's just code for they need more from Pettersson. It's pretty clear. I mean, he's trying not to single him out, but without a doubt, we've seen this guy. We've seen him command games and take over games for stretches, and he had the bubble playoff series, and he had playoff success in Sweden as well. Like it defies explanation, and yet we're all watching it unfold in front of our eyes. And I wish I could offer up more insight that there was something there, but
well, Jeff, game 2, the 9 shot attempts, we criticized him missing the net and getting blocked and all that. At least he had 9 shot attempts. It was great.
But he's practicing here through this series. He's not taking maintenance days. So the people that he must be injured, they're all playing through something. But he was a full participant in Saturday's practice and was out there and played a regular shift. But and it's not just him. I mentioned that third line that really had done nothing. Dakota Joshua had the big first game, and you thought this guy's built for playoff hockey, and boy, he's been hard to find really since then. It was funny because as this game unfolded yesterday, and I know Gus Nyquist scored, but really through 2 periods of play, like it wasn't a night for the Stars on either side. And it was more the Kiefer Sherwoods and the Michael McCarrons and Mark Jankowski that seemed to be running the Canucks show. Those guys play hard. They're fierce. They're in on the forecheck, and they were causing fits for the Vancouver Canucks. And I thought, you can't allow these guys to swing this series back in Nashville's favor. And ultimately that didn't happen. But the Canucks know, and you're right, to a man after the game, whether it was talking at the podium or JT Miller, he was the first guy we talked to. And as relieved as he was to get the victory and talked about it as being a big moment for this group, the second thing out of his mouth was, big moment for the group, but absolutely, we got to be a hell of a lot better than we were in either of the games here in Nashville. So to come to Nashville, get 2 wins with 12 shots on goal on Friday, and really be so clearly the second best team on the ice for 57 minutes. Again, it's just add it to the long list of things that don't totally make sense about this series, but hey, the Canucks will take the 3-1 series lead.
The hesitation or lack of effort on the back check when Sherwood had the shot off the 2-on-1 from Nashville. Like it was one thing when he was just vacant and going through the motions. It was another thing to see effort lacking from Pettersson as it did on that play. When we sat down to do our post game yesterday, he did not have a shot attempt on the event summary. I see they've given him now 1 shot in the shot audit. Jeff, speaking of shots, the totals for the Vancouver Canucks, 21-18, 12-20. They were on the verge of setting a Stanley Cup playoff record for the fewest shots through 12 periods of a series. They have 71 total, 17.75 is your average. It's a stupid question because the answer should be obvious, and yet in a series where logic doesn't seem to apply, is this a repeatable formula? Can they get through Nashville with another low shot game in game 5 or game 6?
I think they can, and I want to give the Predators all the respect and how hard they've played. They're not going to go quietly here, but as I watch this series closely and keep an eye on what the Oilers are doing, now I know the Oilers won a game with they had 12 or 13 shots themselves. So, but their power play is just humming. And the Canucks penalty kill has been terrific in this series. On Sunday, it was a 5-on-5 game. Both teams had 2 power plays and one of them overlapped. So there wasn't a lot of power play time there. But the way the Oilers are ripping it up on the power play and the way they have for the last couple of seasons, that certainly would be a challenge for the Vancouver Canucks. And so, they might be able to squeeze out another win. And that's all they need now to take care of the Nashville Predators. But it's only going to get tougher the further they go. The opponents are going to get better here. And I think the Canucks recognize that. But one thing to say it, at some point here, we have to see it. We've got to see that they recognize that the way it's going here is playing with fire. And, they haven't been torched yet. But, boy, they've come close on a couple of occasions. So, Rick Tocchet talked about the shot attempts. He's been asked about the shots on goal. And, Sunday was the first time in the series, 4 games in, that they crested 4 shots in the first period, which is incredible as well. They keep talking about, we need a better start. And then they go out and they, 4 in the first game, 4 in the second, and then 3 on Friday night. But they did get to 8 shots on goal and open the scoring. It's funny too, guys. First goal of the game often means a lot in the National Hockey League, and the road team has opened the scoring in all 4 of the games in this series. So Canucks will try to, take that trend and tip it on its ear in game number 5. But I thought of their periods, the first period was their best period on Sunday. And, they get out in a tie, usually as the road team. You're okay with that. Didn't spend a ton of time defending. There were a few breakdowns along the way, but then that second period, the ice really tilted in the Predators' favor. And I think a big part of that was that Quinn Hughes wasn't out there and available to tilt the ice back in the Canucks' favor. And you see what life looks like without Quinn Hughes. It's not a pretty thing for the Vancouver Canucks, but when he's not available and not playing at the top of his game, Canucks spent a lot of time defending, giving up a lot of rush chances. And that's one of the things that led to Nashville's success in the second half of the season. They were one of the top rush teams. And you look at a couple of the goals that they scored, the Nyquist goal, the Forsberg goal ultimately, and you mentioned, Matt, the key for Sherwood, shorthanded breakaway. Like the Predators, when they see opportunities, they love to get off to the races there, and so we'll see if that continues when the series gets back to Vancouver for
all
Tuesday
the more
night.
reason to win it in 5 games. Give yourself some days off, right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
For sure.
Hughes, yeah, for sure. Jeff, wonderful stuff. Safe travels home. We'll catch up later in the week, and of course, we'll be
All right,
listening to
guys.
Rink Wide after Game 5 on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll see what we're talking about the next time I'm with you, whether we're looking at the series back in Nashville or whether we can start to look ahead to round number 2 for the Vancouver Canucks.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
the kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.